Matt with MotoWorks here, and the smart car is done. I got the key out and it works. So fixed the parking issue, and another cool thing that I fixed is that massive exhaust leak that this thing had. So the exhaust is fixed. Doesn't leak anymore. We put a new flex pipe in there, and now that it's running, we're gonna just go take this thing for a drive around the block, and I'll give you my impressions on it, and then we'll come back and we'll discuss all the costs involved and see if I'm in over my head or if I actually made out on this deal here. But yeah, let's get in. It's cold out here. Let's get in and take this thing for a rip around the block. I have the whole interior back together. Like I said, this is actually in park right now. I found that I just had to adjust the parking brake cable, and as soon as I did that, it went right back into park and everything was good. I am very happy that I put those 10mm bolts in there, because that was super easy to remove this shift mechanism after I did that. But let's throw her in drive, man. We'll take this thing around the block and see how she does. So I think I still need to do some suspension work on the front of this, because it is absolutely rock solid when you go over bumps. Again, I don't know if that's what it's supposed to be like, but I can't imagine they would sell a car that was this aggressive going over bumps. So I think either I have a shock that's seized up or something going on up front there. Now, the car drives fine. I mean, it goes straight down the road. Only thing I could ask for is an alignment, because my steering wheel's kind of pointed to the right a little bit, but it drives straight. I just think I need to get it centered up and it'll be 100%. But I drove this thing probably about 100 miles. You know, since I fixed the exhaust system, I wanted to actually give it a good shakedown before, you know, I did my final review on it, just in case I needed to spend any more money or, you know, obviously buy any more parts, stuff like that. But it drives good. You can definitely tell it's a small car. I mean, there's no getting around the fact that this thing's small. The wind blows it around, passing tractor trailers blow it off the road. I mean, it's definitely it's an experience, let's say that, which is weird because you sit in this car and you think it's a lot bigger than it is. Because I mean, if you look, I still have headroom in here, you know, so it's not like you feel enclosed, you know, it's not a claustrophobic thing. It's just the car weighs less than 2,000 pounds, and simple elements affect how the car actually runs and drives. Pulling out, terrible. And what makes it so terrible is that shift. I mean, it's almost like there's a communication process going on, or a communication breakdown, I guess I should say. There's no communication. Like, it tells the car to shift, the car pushes in the clutch, shifts the gear, releases the clutch, in that order, at that speed. And do not pull out in front of anybody, because you will probably get rear-ended or you'll have somebody extremely upset with you. But other than that, the slow acceleration, once it's up to speed, it just maintains speed nicely. You know, we're just cruising on a back road here, you know, doing 45 miles an hour, somewhere in that neighborhood, and it drives just fine. You know, I don't have any complaints as far as that's concerned. The engine's noisy. I don't know if it's because it possibly could use a valve adjustment. That's one of the things I should have looked into. I believe these have shim valves, so I probably should have looked into that before I put the engine in, but it is just a little bit noisy. And again, this is the only smart car I've ever owned, driven, so maybe that's just how loud the engine is. I mean, the engine is literally right there under that cover, so you hear everything coming from that engine. But I couldn't hear it before, you know, when I was driving it with the exhaust hanging off, because it was just extremely loud, and I couldn't hear it. But as soon as we fixed the exhaust and I've been driving it around, you definitely can tell it's a little bit noisy. The coolant temperature stays right at about 100 and I got this cool thing here. Got it on Amazon. It displays the OBD2 readings, and I have it set on engine coolant temperature. And the reason I have that is because apparently the people over at Smart, where this thing was originally made, didn't believe in putting a thermostat, or a temperature gauge, in the car. Now I do have a gauge that tells me what the temperature is outside. It's 27 degrees outside right now. But I don't have a gauge that says, hey, your engine's overheating and about to explode, which on a Smart car I'm finding out happens quite often. That's usually the demise of the Smart car, is the engine overheats, cooks a head gasket, and then people are getting rid of them because of it. So something as simple as that, you can catch it early, detect a problem early and fix it before it becomes a real headache. And like I said, this thing was only $40, so potentially $40 investment could save you from having to do all the work I just did to this thing. So I got that, and I've been monitoring my temperatures, and I've only hit, right when the thermostat opens, which is right around 192, 194 degrees. Thermostat opens, temperature drops down to about 77, and then it does that cycle continuously. It's something entertaining to watch when you're going down the highway at highway speeds. It gets up to temp, thermostat opens, and you've got probably 5 foot or more of coolant line between the front of the car and the engine, so it does significantly drop the engine temperature because of that. When you get that circulating that whole way. But so far everything's been good. Transmission's been solid, doesn't do anything funky. I thought there might be some programming I'd have to do to set that up to get that clutch to work just fine, but it seems to have found its happy place, if you will. It works just fine. It's not slipping. It's not engaging too little. It seems to be engaging just enough. It's doing everything it's supposed to do. The other thing I'm trying to do is I'm trying to see how many miles to the gallon I get. So I filled this thing up, and I'm just gonna, next time I fill it up, I zeroed the gauge out here, so we're gonna see what for fuel mileage this thing get. Brakes work good. The car doesn't weigh anything, so you really don't need that impressive of a brake on it, and they seem to get the job done. They're actually, it's funny because when I put the brakes on when I was we were fixing the exhaust, and my buddy Scotty says, he's like, it's not even a vented rotor, it's a solid steel rotor on this car. And it's just hilarious because you don't need a vented rotor, because you're probably not going to be building in excess of gases trying to stop this car. It's just a tiny car. I'm surprised it even has disc brakes on the front and not just drum brakes the whole way around, because you really don't need much of a braking system on this car to get it to stop. The only thing that I think I'm going to need to do yet on the car is probably a fresh set of tires. Like I said, I got to fix the suspension. I don't think it's supposed to be as aggressive as it is. Maybe it is, but I just don't feel that it's supposed to be that aggressive. So I want to address that just to take a look at it and see what's going on there. But other than that, the car is driving just fine. You know what I mean? I'm going to be driving this thing to and from my work, and we'll see if anything else comes up on it. But so far, so good. We're back at the house now, and we're going to just go over the cost breakdown on the car. Now, here's where the was it worth it portion comes into play. Now, I paid $1,700 for the car when I bought it. That's what I paid for it, if anybody wants to know. It was $1,700, and at the time, it was the cheapest Smart car that I had seen in my area of the central Pennsylvania area. It was the cheapest Smart car that I found. So $1,700 for the car. My buddy Scotty hooked me up. Big shout out to him. He came out with his trailer, picked the car up, delivered to the house, and so that saved me a ton of money there. But the car itself needed some things. The engine had overheated, so I needed to get an engine. An engine for this car is anywhere from $800 to, a little bit under $2,000, depending on mileage. If you find a low mileage engine, obviously you're going to pay a little bit more. This one here was, again, the cheapest one I could find at the time, and it was $800 from a scrapyard, guaranteed runner. I saw a video of it running, and $800 is what I paid for the engine. So that was awesome. The bumper, it was missing the bumper and the bumper supports, and that was about $50. I guess the old one was all rotted out. I don't know what happened to this car when the previous owner owned it, but the whole back of this car is just missing everything. I mean, I still have to replace, there's a trim seal around the back here that is just not there. I don't even know why you would take that off in the first place. There's no reason to do it. So, but I need one, so I have to look for one of those. And I don't know what went on in the back there. So we replaced a lot of stuff. It was completely rusted out back there. So we got paint over rust, and that kit, I bought 2 kits because I found that was the cheapest way to do it. So the kits are like $30 on Amazon. So I got 2 of the paint over rust kits, and 4 ounces of that stuff goes a really long way, actually. So I was surprised with the coverage. So with 2 4-ounce cans, I was able to paint that whole subframe and hopefully prevent it from rusting out in the future. So that was the engine, that stuff taken care of. So for about $900 or so, I got the cradle repainted, got the used engine, and I got the new bumper. Now, all the stuff that went into actually getting the engine completed, getting it installed in the car, I'll do the breakdown on that. Now, this thing needed axles. The axles on it were rusted out, and it was actually, when I scanned the car initially, it was throwing an ABS light, and the reason that was because the axle was missing the little speed rings on the outside there for the ABS sensors. Those were rusted out. So I got 2 new axles, and those were about $100 a piece. The shift cable was busted. So whoever owned this before, they took it to a garage, and the garage really didn't have any idea what they were doing. There was a lot of broken stuff. Between the missing stuff I just talked about, and there were some things on here that were just broken. Shift cable being one of them. I mean, they just completely obliterated that cable. Either they didn't take it off correctly, or they bashed it when they were putting the engine in. Who knows? But that cable was about $80, to get a new cable, which it is an OEM smart cable. So that's awesome. You can still get OEM parts for these cars, guys. So don't let that stuff, put fear in your eyes. You can still get the OEMs for this. It's out there. You do have to do some research, but you can still find it. Service stuff came out to about $220, and that included things like the water pump, thermostat, spark plugs, which is funny. I had to get a pack of 4 spark plugs because it was cheaper than buying 3 spark plugs on Rock Auto, which I could get all the parts from Rock Auto, so that's awesome too, which means that this car is easy to get parts for, in my opinion. If you can get the parts on Rock Auto, then parts are easy to get for this car. Belts, so I put a fresh set of belts on, both for the air conditioning as well as the water pump, alternator, that type of thing. I got both filters, so I got a new cabin filter and I got a new air filter. And again, all that stuff came out to about $220, $225 with shipping, something like that total. Now, when I had the engine out, I figured, you know what? I'm not even going to risk it. I'm just going to put a brand new clutch in this, which was $300. And looking at the clutch that was in it, I probably could have saved myself $300, but I didn't want to be stuck in that place where it's like, I should have put a clutch in it, and now it slips, or now it's giving me issues. So I just bit the bullet on that. $300, nice. I think it's a Sachs clutch, so it's a good quality clutch, and I just put it in there. Now, I didn't do anything with the flywheel, but flywheel looked pretty good, looked pretty flat. I just scuffed it up with a little little buzz wheel there, Scotch-Brite basically. Just scuffed it up so it has a nice surface for the new clutch to bed into. So I didn't get a new flywheel, but I did get a new clutch. And then brakes. I put front brake pads and rotors on this because the old ones were shot completely. I mean, they were almost metal on metal, so they were due to be replaced. And those only cost 44 bucks. I mean, that stuff was pretty cheap. So, grand total price of everything spent, I'm just shy of $4,000 because I rebuilt the starter, and then I also rebuilt the alternator, but then had to get it replaced because when it was rebuilt, it still fell apart. Now, I've seen good examples of this car sell for anywhere between $3,000 to $5,000. Now, that's running, driving with no issues and less miles. This thing has about 140,000 miles on it, so it also has that working against it. And for the amount of money I have into it, the amount of insane time I have into this thing, it's definitely not worth it. Like, I could not sell this car and get my money back. But I didn't really buy it to do that, but I wouldn't be able to even if I did. And things like the clutch, if I wouldn't have put a clutch in here, it still would have brought the price down 300 bucks, but at the same time, it still wouldn't have been worth it at that price. I overpaid when I bought this. I had buyer's eyes, and the previous owner, he got me. You know, he did the old, I got a guy coming at 6 o'clock if you don't buy it now type setup. And of course I wanted one and had to have it, so I shelled out the cash, and I definitely overpaid for this one here. If I would have got it for in the $1,000 range and I would have had right around $3,000 into this, then absolutely it would have been worth it 100%. But if you're looking at buying one of these cars, you got to get it at the right price, and I overpaid. So, oh well, they can't all be winners, guys, and this wasn't a free car like I usually get, or a free vehicle like I usually get. So, yeah, this one cost me, but not terribly. And I'm going to try and recuperate my money by driving it, and hopefully it saves me a ton in fuel mileage. But we'll have to wait and see. Maybe I'll do a review video here after I get 1,000, 2,000 miles on this thing, and let you know my true impressions of the vehicle. But so far, it's been good. It was not worth it for the price I paid initially, especially after all the work that I had to do to the car. I should have done a little bit more investigating as far as like finding out the issues with these cars, you know, finding out how difficult it is to work on these, which it's not difficult to work on them, but it is difficult to find a mechanic that wants to do the work. And I can tell you right now that I'm not your guy. I'm not going to jump out and do work on these cars because parts take a little bit longer than they should to get. You can still get all the parts availability is there, but the parts take quite a while to get, especially because you have to buy them typically online, so you got to wait for shipping, and it's not something you're walking into Advance Auto and getting parts for. It's something that you got to go to, you know, online somewhere and find somebody that just has a surplus of these parts. But no, like I said, I'll try on the next vehicle, see if that next vehicle is worth it, but this one here, guys, was not worth it. I hope you liked the whole entire series, and you know, I'll bring you some more. I do still have the Honda Shadow project that I will be starting up because, as you saw out there, the sun's shining, and it's starting to warm up around here, so got to get that bike ready for that first nice, beautiful spring day where everybody's chomping at the bit to buy it. But for now, I'm just going to drive my little Smarty all over the place and earn my money back on it one way or another. But that is going to do it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for checking the video out, guys. If you liked the video, as always, drop a thumbs up. Any comments you'd like to leave below. If you have a smart car and any stories on it, I'd love to hear them in the comment section. If you're new to the channel, consider smashing that subscribe button, and we'll see you in the next upload, guys. I'm Matt. This is Motorworks.